Discipline isn't a switch you flip. It's a low, constant hum. It's the first breath of air when you open your eyes in the morning and the last thought before you close them at night. For me, Mark, it's a hum that's been part of me since I was a teenager. It's the core of my taekwondo training, the foundation of my gym, and the reason I don't look my age. At 35, I'm often mistaken for someone much younger, a fact that has always been a source of quiet amusement, and, as I would soon find out, a source of profound irritation for others. I wasn't a fighter outside the gym. My fighting was a philosophical practice, a way to sharpen the mind and maintain the body. My gym, Apex Strength and Self-Defense, was my sanctuary, a place where I taught others the same principles. It was a good life. Peaceful. On a Friday night, 8 days ago, I was at a local bar, a small, dimly lit place with good beer and live music. I was enjoying a rare night out, away from the weights and the mats, just enjoying the quiet hum of a good life. I was standing by the bar, waiting for my second beer, when I felt it. A hand, big and meaty, clamped down on my wrist. It wasn't a friendly tap. It was a grip of pure, unadulterated dominance. I turned, my mind instantly snapping into a state of alert calm. My body, conditioned over years, felt the tension in the grip, the angle of the wrist, the potential for a larger conflict. But I didn't tense up. I didn't react. I just looked at the man holding my arm. He was a mountain of muscle, easily 250 pounds of sheer, physical presence. He was wearing a tank top that strained against his bulging biceps, and a look of amused condescension was plastered across his face. "Hey, bro," he said, his voice a low rumble. "This girl over there says you've been staring at her all night." I looked over his shoulder to a small group of women. One of them, a blonde in a red dress, looked confused. She hadn't been looking at me, and I hadn't been looking at her. I had been watching the band. The man, let's call him Brick, was making this up. He was looking for a fight, a way to flex his physical dominance and impress his friends. "I haven't," I said, my voice calm and even. I didn't pull away, didn't make a sudden move. I was watching the band. "Yeah, right," he said, his grip tightening. He let out a low chuckle, his friends from a nearby booth now watching the show. "Looks like we've got a creeper who can't take a hint." His friends laughed, a low, guttural sound. The bartender, a guy named Rick who knew me, looked over with a flicker of concern. My calm non-reaction was not having the effect Brick wanted. He wanted me to squirm. He wanted me to fight back. When I didn't, his amusement turned to a low, simmering frustration. He shoved me then. Not a hard shove, but a deliberate one, a public humiliation. He pushed me back, right into the counter, the force of his body against mine a clear declaration of his physical superiority. The crowd at the bar turned, a momentary hush falling over the room. I stumbled, but I didn't fall. My feet, trained for balance and stability, held firm. I kept my hands to myself. I didn't fight back. I just looked at him, my face a mask of quiet composure. That's when the real insult came. "Hey, little man," he said, his voice full of a cruel, mocking bravado. "What are you, 12? Go back to daycare." He reached out and, with a casual, dismissive flick of his wrist, slapped my glasses off my face. They went flying across the bar, landing with a soft clatter on the other side of the room. The room erupted in laughter, and Brick stood there, a victorious grin on his face. I was humiliated. I was angry. I was a man who had spent years learning how to control his anger, and it was now a powerful, raging fire in my gut. But I stayed relaxed. I stayed calm. I didn't react. I just stood there, a blur of light and color, a man without his glasses, and I knew, with a terrible certainty, that this was not a physical fight. This was a war. I didn't say a word. I didn't move to get my glasses. I just stood there, a calm, silent target. The laughter slowly died down. Brick, seeing he wasn't going to get the reaction he wanted, shrugged and walked back to his table, his friend still laughing and patting him on the back. The bartender, Rick, was the first to move. He walked around the counter, picked up my glasses, and handed them to me. The left lens was cracked. I thanked him, put them in my pocket, and paid for my beer. I didn't finish it. I just walked out of the bar and into the cool night air. The walk home was a blur of righteous anger and cold, focused clarity. My taekwondo training had taught me many things, but the most important lesson was that a conflict is not just about physical strength. It's about strategy. It's about control. It's about knowing your enemy and knowing yourself. I had just been publicly humiliated, lied about, and assaulted. I was angry, but I wasn't going to let that anger control me. This wasn't a street brawl I was going to win with my fists. This was a long game. I had been mocked for looking 12, but I was going to fight this with the discipline and intelligence of a man with 2 decades of training. The first thing I did when I got home was to put on a new pair of glasses. The second thing I did was to create a new folder on my laptop. I named it the Brick Project. I wrote down every detail of the night, every word, every gesture, every witness I could remember. I was going to document everything. I thought that would be the end of it. A bad night, a public humiliation, a lesson learned. But Brick wasn't done. He was a man who needed to win, to dominate, to prove his superiority. And I, by not fighting back, had become his unfinished business. 3 days later, he and his friends started showing up at my gym. They didn't come to work out. They didn't come to train. They came to watch. They would park their car across the street, their windows down, and just stare at my gym. I saw them on my security cameras, their faces a mix of boredom and malicious intent. On one occasion, Brick himself came to the door. He didn't come in. He just stood there, his arms crossed, and stared me down through the glass. "Nice place, little man," he said with a cruel smile. "Looks a little small for a real man's gym." He then flexed his bicep and walked away, his friends laughing in the background. My students, who were in the middle of a class, looked at me with concern. I just smiled, a calm, reassuring gesture. "Nothing to worry about," I said, my voice steady. "Just a little friendly competition." But it wasn't friendly. It was a clear act of intimidation. He was trying to get under my skin, to disrupt my peace, to make me break. But I had my training. I had my discipline. I knew that the moment I reacted, the moment I gave him the satisfaction of a fight, I would lose. I continued to document everything. Brick's campaign of intimidation soon moved from the physical world to the digital one. He and his friends started leaving fake, 1-star reviews for my gym online. "The owner is a creeper," one review read. "The gym is a joke, only for little kids." Another read, "The owner, Mark, looks like he's 12. Don't go here if you want to get a real workout." The comments were a direct echo of his words from the bar, a clear attempt to damage my reputation and my business. I was a professional. My gym was my livelihood. I had worked for years to build a community of trust and respect, and this man, this bully, was trying to tear it all down with a handful of malicious lies. He also started a social media campaign. He posted pictures of himself at his own gym, his muscles straining, his face contorted in a mock-serious expression. "Getting a real workout," one post read, "not at some daycare for little kids." The comments section was filled with his friends' hateful, derisive laughter. I knew he was targeting me. I was the little kid, and my gym was the daycare. He was building a narrative, a lie, and he was using his platform to spread it. It was a campaign of psychological warfare, and it was working. I felt a growing sense of anxiety, a quiet dread that was threatening to consume me. The harassment, however, was not going unnoticed. My students, a diverse group of people from all walks of life, began to rally around me. My Taekwondo students, who had seen me handle conflicts with a quiet, composed grace, were furious. My strength training students, many of whom were big, strong men themselves, were outraged. Mark, one of my students, a guy named Dave, said to me one morning, "I saw the reviews. I know who those guys are. They go to a gym down the street. I think they're trying to put you out of business. Another student, an IT professional named Jessica, approached me with a solution. I can help with the reviews, she said. I can report them as spam, and I can also help you gather digital evidence. We can timestamp every post, every comment, every review. We can build a case. And then there was my friend, a lawyer named Dan. He wasn't a student, but he was a close friend who had been a loyal supporter of my gym from the very beginning. When I told him what was happening, he was furious. We can't let him get away with this, Mark, he said. This isn't just harassment, it's defamation. It's stalking. We have to fight back, but we have to do it the smart way. We have to do it the legal way. I wasn't alone. The community I had built was now a fortress around me, a shield against the bully and his campaign of lies. My quiet, patient documentation had become a collective effort, a team of good people working together to fight a bad man. Despite the support, the constant harassment took a toll. I was sleeping less. My mind was in a constant state of alert. The hum of discipline, which had once been a source of peace, was now a strained, frantic buzz. I would walk into the gym and immediately check the parking lot for Brick's car. I would check the security cameras, my eyes constantly scanning for a threat. My family, my wife, and my young daughter were my biggest worry. I had never brought my work home, never let the stress of my profession affect them. But now, it was impossible to separate the two. I would find myself snapping at my wife over small things, my patience worn thin by the constant psychological pressure. I even started to worry about my daughter. What if Brick found out where we lived? What if he followed me home? The fear was a cold, suffocating blanket, and it was threatening to consume me. My Taekwondo training had taught me how to handle a physical fight. It had taught me how to take a hit and how to deliver a strike. But it had never prepared me for this. This was a different kind of combat, a slow, insidious war of attrition. I was a disciplined man, but I was also a human being. The constant lies, the mocking, the subtle threats, they were getting to me. I knew, with a terrible certainty, that I couldn't let this go on. I had to fight back, not just for myself, but for the peace and safety of my family and my community. With my team of friends, Jessica the IT expert, Dan the lawyer, and Dave the supportive student, I devised a plan. It wasn't a plan of physical retribution. It wasn't about meeting Brick in a dark alley and delivering a swift, final blow. It was a plan of patience, of intelligence, and of overwhelming force. The first step was to continue documenting everything. Jessica, with her tech skills, created a detailed spreadsheet, logging every fake review, every social media post, every time Brick's car was seen near my gym. We had dates, times, and screenshots. It was a mountain of evidence, a clear pattern of harassment and defamation. The second step was legal. Dan, my lawyer friend, had a simple, elegant plan. He was going to draft a letter, a formal letter of intent to sue. It wouldn't be a threat, it would be a statement of fact. It would outline the charges of harassment, stalking, and defamation, and it would list the evidence we had. It was a warning shot, a clear declaration that we were not playing games. The third and final step was public. We were going to use the power of social media to expose him, not with a lie, but with the truth. We weren't going to call him a monster or a bully. We were going to let his own actions do the talking. We were going to let the world see what he was really like, not with my words, but with an unedited, irrefutable piece of evidence. The missing piece of our puzzle, the final piece of evidence we needed, was the video from the bar. Rick, the bartender, was a good man. When I had asked him about it, he was hesitant at first, worried about getting involved. But when I told him the full story, about the online reviews and the intimidation, he was furious. He called the bar owner, a woman named Carol, and explained the situation. She, being a small business owner herself, understood immediately. She saw the injustice and the malicious intent. 2 days later, Jessica and I were sitting in my office, watching the footage from the bar. The video was a silent, black and white masterpiece of truth. It showed Brick, a massive, imposing figure, grab my wrist. It showed me, a smaller, calmer man, not reacting. It showed him shove me into the counter, the force of the impact a clear visual. It showed him slap my glasses off my face, the deliberate, cruel gesture of a bully. It showed me stand there, a quiet, unmoving target, my face a mask of silent composure. And it showed the laughter, the humiliation, the sheer, unadulterated cruelty of the entire scene. We had it. The gold mine of evidence we needed. This wasn't just a claim anymore. This was a fact, an unassailable, visual truth that could not be denied. We had Brick dead to rights. With the video in hand, Dan sent the legal letter. It was a beautiful piece of legal writing, clear, concise, and utterly devastating. It outlined the harassment, the stalking, the defamation, and it mentioned the bar footage. It was a declaration of war, but a war fought with words and evidence, not with fists. Brick, however, was not a smart man. He thought I was bluffing. He thought I was a 12-year-old playing a game he couldn't possibly win. His response was predictable. He left a new, anonymous message on my gym's social media page. "You're playing with fire, little man," it read. "You don't want to get into a real fight with me." It was a vague threat, a final, desperate attempt at intimidation. I sent him one last message. It wasn't a threat. It was a simple, professional email. It contained a single link, a link to a file, a copy of the bar footage, and a message that read, "You have 24 hours to retract every lie, delete every review, and offer a public apology. If you don't, this video, and our full legal case, goes public." The ball was in his court. He could either admit his defeat and walk away, or he could double down on his lies and face the full force of the truth. I knew, with a quiet certainty, which path he would choose. He didn't apologize. He didn't retract his lies. He doubled down. So, with the help of Jessica and Dan, we released the video. We didn't post it on my gym's page. We posted it on a new, anonymous page we had created, a page dedicated to exposing bullies. The title of the post was simple: "What a 250-pound gym bro didn't know about a Taekwondo black belt." The video was a compilation of the bar footage, juxtaposed with screenshots of his fake reviews and social media posts. The story was told in a simple, straightforward narrative. A man was publicly humiliated, harassed, and stalked, and he fought back not with his fists, but with patience and the truth. The clip went viral. It was a story that resonated with people. The unprovoked aggression, the public humiliation, the quiet, composed resilience of the victim, it was a tale as old as time, and the internet, with its collective sense of justice, latched onto it with a furious, righteous anger. The comments section was a whirlwind of support, of outrage, of people sharing their own stories of being bullied. The clip was shared thousands of times. The video of the man, the bully, the 250-pound gym bro, was now a symbol of everything that was wrong with a culture of toxic masculinity and unprovoked aggression. The internet, with its vast, collective memory, did what it does best. It found Brick. The comments and shares and outrage quickly led to his identity. His full name, his social media pages, the gym he worked out at, even his employer, it all came out. The local news station picked up the story. The anchor, a professional woman with a calm, serious expression, told the story of the bar incident, the harassment campaign, and the viral video. She even showed the bar footage, the unedited, silent truth of the entire event. The story was now a national news item, a cautionary tale of a bully who had picked the wrong fight. The fallout was swift and brutal. Brick's employer, a large, national company, fired him. The gym he had worked out at, an establishment that prided itself on being a safe space for its members, revoked his membership. His friends, the very people who had laughed at my humiliation, began to distance themselves from him. The man who had sought to destroy my reputation was now a pariah in his own community. His social media pages were a wasteland of hate and scorn. The man who had been so proud of his physical dominance was now a man without a job, without friends, and without a reputation. I didn't feel a sense of triumph. I felt a quiet, exhausted relief. With the truth out in the open, Dan and I served the final legal papers. We weren't seeking a huge payout. We were seeking a restraining order and a public apology. We wanted a legal shield, a final, definitive declaration that this man could no longer touch my life, my family, or my business. The day of the hearing was quiet. Brick didn't show up. His lawyer, a nervous, sweating man, came in his place. He was there to surrender. He was there to agree to our terms. He signed the restraining order. He signed the legal agreement for a public apology. He signed away any rights he had to contact me or my family. The man who had once been so full of a loud, boisterous bravado was now a man who was silenced, a man who had lost everything because he couldn't control his own temper, a man who had been defeated not by a single kick, but by a single lie, a single piece of evidence, and a single, unyielding will. The news report, the viral video, the legal victory, they were all necessary. They were all part of a larger battle, a battle for my peace of mind, for my family's safety, and for the integrity of my community. Last night, 8 days after his public humiliation, I received an anonymous message. It was a video clip. It was shot from a distance, shaky and out of focus. It was Brick, standing in a deserted parking lot, his head in his hands, his body shaking with a deep, shuddering sob. He was crying. The man who had called me a 12-year-old was now a broken, defeated man, crying in a parking lot, his world shattered by a truth he couldn't outrun. I watched the clip. I felt no joy. I felt no satisfaction. I just felt a quiet, profound sadness. He had a choice. He could have walked away. He could have let it go. But he chose to escalate, to lie, to bully, and to stalk, and he paid the ultimate price for his actions. My gym is thriving. My community is stronger, a place where people support each other, where people fight for the truth. My life is back to its quiet, peaceful hum. The taekwondo training, the discipline, the patience, they were not just tools for a physical fight. They were tools for a life. The man, the bully, the 250-pound gym bro, had picked a fight not knowing I was a taekwondo black belt. But he also didn't know that I was a patient man, a smart man, a man with a community that would stand with me. And in the end, that was the most powerful weapon of all.